A friend of mine has a sheep farm and they gave me some wool pellets. This is a slow release natural fertilizer. Looks like this. It's a byproduct of the wool industry. And its nutrient profile is 902, so it's pretty high nitrogen in the ratio, which is great for things like my brassicas, which is why I'm going to put it on my brassica bed first. Another cool thing about this is that it can retain moisture in your soil because it holds 30% of its weight in water. I mean, when you think about wool, it does absorb water or moisture. It also can sequester carbon to use this wool in your garden. Wool is 50% carbon, and so by putting it in the ground, you're preventing it from being gassed into the atmosphere. Another cool thing about this stuff is that it can apparently deter slugs and snails from your garden. Now, some people have said that it may attract flies, so we'll see if that happens. I'm going to use it in a couple of different ways, but the way I'm doing right now is I'm going to plunk some into this watering can. We've got 2 gallons of water. Just sprinkle some into here, and we're going to let it sit and release into the water, kind of like if you're making a compost tea. You just put your fertilizing stuff into the water, let it sit out in the sun, and it's going to leach into the water. And I'm going to water my brassicas with this. I'm also kind of testing this stuff out. It's a new product that my sheep farmer friend is carrying at Bushbeck Farms, and so I want to test it in a couple of different ways that are experiment-like, quasi-experimental. I have these 2 tomato beds. I have one here and I have one on the other side of the arched trellis, and they're the same gardens in the sense that they were installed at the same time, filled with the same, just triple mix. There's some logs at the bottom. There's no compost added beyond what's already in the triple mix. The only difference is that the tomatoes are different varieties. I don't have the same tomatoes here and there to compare, but I'm going to use the scratching into the soil method on the tomato beds. So I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit around each of the base of each tomato plant here. Just sprinkle it 2 to 3 inches into the soil, and only do it here on this bed and not the other one. And we'll see if we notice any difference in how the tomatoes grow. Garden hands. I don't know why I never think to put gloves on. One of the things I love about this is that it's slow release, so I don't have to worry about it burning the plants. It's not a fertilizer that if you don't dilute it enough, you water it on, it can burn your plants. It's just going to release its beautiful nutrients slowly into the soil over the growing season. There's one more way I'm going to be testing the natural wool pellet fertilizer in the garden this year that I can think of so far, at least, and that is with my sweet potatoes. Now, I'm doing the sweet potatoes as an experiment simply because I have 2 identical containers. These are totes that are filled with triple mix from last year and then topped up with composted manure from this year. And then now I'm just amending them. They're sunken into the wood chips on this hill. I can't plant directly into the wood chips, so I put some totes in the ground to add to my planting space. And the sweet potatoes are going in these 2 identical totes. Identical sweet potatoes started from the same potato, the slips from the same potato. And I've already amended these with a little bone meal, which gives you the phosphorus. The wool pellets are higher nitrogen and they have 0 phosphorus in the ratio. And potatoes need phosphorus, they need the root strength. And so I'm gonna add this to the totes with composted manure, some bone meal, and a little respectable handful of the wool pellets. Time to plant some sweet potatoes. Put in those roots. we're done planting. Let's see at the end of the season if we can tell any difference in the sweet potatoes, in the tomatoes, and although I'm not comparing across two different brassica beds, oh, I have dirt smeared all over my face. We're gonna see if I can notice that the brassicas are really big and bountiful in their tiny little bed that they are crammed in. This whole thing is broccoli, cauliflower, cabbages, sprouting or branching broccoli. Like, there's so much in this little bed. I watered the brassicas with the wool pellets that I diluted or soaked in a watering can full of water overnight, all day yesterday and overnight. This is broccoli here, and I have never grown traditional heading broccoli before. Oh, there's a tiny little floret starting in there. I've only ever grown the branching kinds. I just didn't have a lot of space. I wanted things that I could reliably come and harvest from again and again and again, which I know you can a little bit with these. This is another succession broccoli. This one looks like it might just start sending out little side shoots, which is also totally fine. But back here I have 9-star perennial broccoli, also known as 9-star perennial cauliflower, which is all about the branching. And then this is Yodfa Chinese broccoli, which I have grown in the past, and it's stellar for sending out tons of side shoots all season long. So I've got lots of branching options. This is a golden cabbage, I think, which there's some, that's wool, that's not a slug, that is wool from watering. Anyway, starting to maybe form little heads. Swiss chard is really, really crammed in here. I've got a few Swiss chards that are just crammed in. Try to keep them harvested regularly, just mostly so they stay more compact. I've got a garlic crammed in there. This is Brussels sprouts. It's behind this little cage, just mostly to keep it separated from the rest so I know what I'm looking at. Because all these brassicas look the same at this stage. And I think this is a Brussels sprout. Yeah, so I have 2 Brussels sprouts in here. I've grown Brussels sprouts before, and it's really a long game. So they're going to grow all season long, and I'm going to harvest them like for Christmas dinner. So they're going to stay under this row cover, and I can replace this insect netting with plastic when we get there. To colder weather, that is. There's also in here just some little turnips. I think it's called hurakai, or I don't know. I don't have the seed packet with me, but they're a really nice little tender turnip. They're like a less spicy radish almost. There's a weed that I don't need in my salads. Yodfa Chinese broccoli. Another weed. Lamb's quarter. It's edible, but there's too much of other things that I can put in my salads to worry about saving weeds for my salads. This is a leek. Really, really tightly planted in here. And I rarely get in here to weed because it's always under the insect cover, but you know what? There are no eggs under the leaves in this brassica bed, which is such a win. So this is what the wool looks like the next day after being watered in. Pretty cool, pretty woolly. We are gonna have to wait until the end of the season, probably like October or late September, before I dig up these sweet potatoes, and then we're gonna see if there is a notable difference. Looks pretty cool though.